Welcome back. It's another week, and this time we're taking on the Area Zero Valiant. And we're supposed to play in 20 minutes, so really not much time to waste here. The Valiant have some interesting Pokemon on their team. They've got Zapdos, Cantonian Zapdos, as you can see, Gengar, Gastrodon, Lumineon, Shroodle, Thwackey, Zorua, Toxtricity, Hisuian Arcanine, Mismagius, and Paldean Wooper. So, some interesting Pokemon here for sure. Zapdos is a fairly strong and versatile Pokemon. It maybe doesn't scare me quite like Iron Valiant did last week, but it can go offensive, it can go bulky, it can spam paralysis, it can do tailwind support stuff. It has a lot of tools that can, I'm sure, make it hard to deal with in draft format. They drafted my favorite Pokemon, so obviously it's broken. No more needed there. Gastrodon, of course, can play a solid support role, and it or Lumineon can direct water attacks away from Hisuian Arcanine. Hisuian Arcanine is another Pokemon that can go offensive or do support intimidate stuff. It can play like Cantonian Arcanine, but with more exploitable weaknesses, unless you terrestrialize it, and that's not an issue anymore. Rockhead offense with Flare Blitz, and I think it gets Head Smash. Looking over this team, actually, they have a few different ways to spread status, and they have a number of Hex users. Gengar, Mismagius, I think, gets Hex. Toxtricity, I think, gets Hex. So that's a game plan they can go with. They can also do Boom Burst Toxtricity next to Gengar or Mismagius. They get Prankster support from Shroodle, and Thwackey, I assume, kind of plays like Baby Rillaboom. So overall, this team has a lot of tools to make for an interesting matchup, and despite everything that I've said so far, I'm actually not entirely sure that I understand what this team is cooking. When I first looked over it, when I was starting to build my team for this matchup, I really didn't have much of an idea of what my opponent was likely to throw at me. So that means that there's a lot of opportunity for surprises in this matchup, and we kind of need to be ready for anything to an extent, because I don't entirely understand what game plan I'm likely to face, even though I speculated a little bit about some possible game plans earlier. That said, one thing that I do understand about my opponent's team is that before terrestrialization, its only dark resist is Zorua. I guess I learned nothing from last week because I'm back on this again, this time with choice banned Urshifu. I'm not as worried about the speed control in this matchup. They do have Tailwind with Zapdos, and then Gengar is fast, and Mismagius is somewhat fast. But overall, yeah, the speed control doesn't seem like as difficult a puzzle in this matchup as it did in the previous one, so I figured that I could afford to just go for Choice Band, especially if I give lots of supports to Urshifu to maximize its opportunity to stay on the field and do damage, which is what I plan to do with the rest of this team. I think most likely I bring Urshifu in the back, at least in Game 1, and I pair it there with Noivern. Often when I run Tailwind, I tend to default to just leading with the Tailwind setter and trying to get it off right away. But this time, I think this, at least for Game 1, the game plan is about creating openings for Urshifu to attack later. And that means holding my Tailwind setter in the back to try to give Urshifu maximum Tailwind turns when the time is right. That's what I'm thinking right now. I could completely change my mind when the games actually get started and do something different, but for now, I'm thinking Game 1, my two back Pokemon are probably Urshifu and Noivern. Terra Ghost Noivern can avoid Fake Out from Thwackey, and Dragon attacks are also pretty strong into my opponent's team. They have a lot of neutral coverage. In fact, before terrestrialization, there's no Dragon resist at all. So, Draco Meteor boosted by Dragon Fang lets me get off a strong hit into something if I need that little bit more offense. I think I did, at one point, consider Dragon Pulse for more consistent damage instead of one big burst of damage, but given that I've built my game plan around attacking primarily with Urshifu, I think that getting off a lot of damage once or twice with Noivern is a fine role for it here. So if these two are in the back, then the question is, what are my leads? And I think at least for Game 1, probably unless I change my mind at preview, I try to disrupt and set up with the combination of Zoroark and Orthworm. Zoroark has basically just every disruption option tacked on right now. Bitter Malice, Snarl, Icy Wind. Every one of those moves lowers one offensive stat, and between them, of course, all three offensive stats are covered. So whatever matchup I see, not even at preview, whatever matchup I see turn 1, unless they go for some crazy tech to get Zoroark off the field right away, I'm getting some kind of stat drop on them that will hopefully set up for Urshifu to run through their team probably once Zoroark has gone down. Although I can get Urshifu in earlier than that, because this time we are bringing Shed-Tail Orthworm. Engineered, of course, to be as slow as possible, so as to get off the slow Shed-Tail and get Urshifu in safely behind a substitute, guaranteeing at least one Choice Banded hit even into something, even if the speed control game has really gone against me, ideally guaranteeing 2 hits. Terra Dragon, because that just provides a lot of useful resistances against my opponent's team, resisting electric, water, grass, fire. It's not a defense. It doesn't get a lot of attention as a defensive type in VGC, but I think in draft it can be a pretty solid defensive type in the right matchup. Heavy Slam and Body Press, so that Orthworm has some options to do damage if I'm left with it in a late game situation. A lot of my opponent's team is pretty light, so Heavy Slam on paper can do a lot of damage. Well, I mean, Orthworm's not really trained to do damage, but it has a lot of power into a lot of the opponent's team. And Body Press rounds out the coverage into the rest. So most likely in game 1, I do Zoroark, Orthworm in the lead, Urshifu, Noivern in the back. I actually haven't thought about which one will be in the last slot, which I should think about, because I'll want to disguise Zoroark as something. Maybe Noivern in the last slot, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll play around with it. And then, of course, 2 other Pokemon that I can swap in if that doesn't work, or if I just want to mix things up in a later game. Blissey is here basically just to keep the team alive. I went with Shadow Ball for Blissey's 1 attack for maximum coverage, and Terra Dark so that Shroodle can't interfere with Blissey filling its role. One issue when I run bulky modes on this team is that there are only so many healing items available. So you can see I have Citrus Berry already on Orthworm. I guess I have the leftovers on Venomoth. I do. So Blissey's left with the Iapapa Berry, but with Life Dew, it can keep itself and a teammate healthy, and of course give the power boost with Helping Hand. Nothing too complicated here. Venomoth then is coming off the bench, making its season debut. I was kind of split between 2 roles for Venomoth, and I kind of split the difference and ran both of them. On the one hand, Venomoth can redirect attacks with Rage Powder to, again, further enable Urshifu to get off as many attacks as it can, since I'm considering that my primary win condition. But I also thought that I should run something as a secondary Shed-Tail recipient. I should have some option other than Urshifu that will hit things hard behind a substitute. And so Quiver Dance Venomoth seemed valuable in that role. Venomoth's stabs are actually very bad into my opponent's team, but, or at least on paper, but with Tinted Lens, they don't really have any bug resist except Gengar. So I thought about running a coverage move on Venomoth, but I knew I wanted Quiver Dance, I knew I wanted Rage Powder. It was hard to make room. I think Bug Buzz alone is not ideal, but will do, thanks to Tinted Lens. And then, yeah, I think I originally had leftovers on Blissey and Black Sludge on Venomoth, but if I actually go Terra Bug, then Black Sludge hurts rather than helping. So I decided to play it safe and put the leftovers here, so Venomoth can nicely set up, especially if it gets behind a substitute, and Blissey will make do with Iapapa Berry and Life Dew. The one problem, not the one problem, but the biggest problem for an Urshifu-centered game plan, right? I mean, I'm not that worried about Shroodle because Urshifu is immune to Prankster. I'm not that worried about Hisuian Arcanine because Wicked Blow doesn't really care about my attack stat. The biggest issue is Zapdos, because Zapdos is bulky. It's my opponent's best bet for speed control in this matchup, and it gets static. I considered running something to cover for static. There are a few different items I could have gone with, or I even considered Terra Electric Urshifu at one point. But in the end, Zapdos is only 1 Pokemon on my opponent's team. I mean, I'm sure they'll bring it, but because it's their best Pokemon, but it is only 1 out of 4 in any game. Static is only so likely to activate in a given instance, and I can control for when it activates to an extent, not perfectly, but it only activates when I attack the thing with a contact move, so I can play around that. So in the end, I decided that I probably got the most value most of the time from preserving the option to do just as much damage as possible with Choice Band and Terra Dark instead of running something silly to avoid static. And if Urshifu gets paralyzed and it costs me a game, we'll just have to live with that. Final thing, elephant in the room. When I pasted this team in to get ready for the game, which is the set, which is in 9 minutes at this point, I only noticed then that I had never actually finished making Urshifu's set. Urshifu had one move, Wicked Blow, and no EVs. I have cheated a little bit and already given it EVs before I started recording, but I mean, it's a good thing I'm recording at all, or else I might have gotten into game one without having noticed. I do expect that Urshifu will mostly spam Wicked Blow, but let's fill out its moves right now. I don't love close combat here because because 3 of their best Pokemon are a flying type and 2 ghost types. I mean, what does it cover for? I guess it covers for Terra Dark something, and I mean, I'm not really pressed for move slots here, so I will still put close combat in. I definitely want Sucker Punch, but I want that in the last slot because that's just how I organize this kind of set. What do I want for the third move? Is it worth getting... Like, I could run something that's super effective into Zapdos. Well, okay. Dark is resisted by Dark, Fairy, and Fighting, right? Those are all the types that resist Dark. So Fairy... A Terra Fairy something resists both of Urshifu's stabs, so let's just... I mean, they don't have a natural Fairy type, so any Fairy type that we face is pure Fairy. There's no reason to run Poison Jab over Iron Head. Let's just do Wicked Blow, Close Combat, Iron Head, Sucker Punch. Choice Band. The EVs, Outspeed, Modest Gengar. I don't know if that's irrelevant. I think they outspeed Modest Gengar. I don't know if that's a relevant matchup, but I mean, I might as well. It's Choice Banded, I can go Terra Dark. It's going to do a lot of damage, even with a Jolly Nature. And that's the team, finally, complete and ready to go. I am... I'll resume recording in a few minutes, I think, when I've connected with my opponent, as we get going here in week 3. Okay, we're back, and I double-checked. It is faster than Modest Gengar, but as you can see, that's not going to matter here. I got Mismagius, Toxtricity, Hisuian Arcanine, Lumineon, Zapdos, and Gastrodon. I really didn't talk much about Lumineon in the builder part, I realized, and that's because I don't know what it does. I think it gets Tailwind, as does Zapdos. And I'm pretty sure it gets Storm Drain, as does Gastrodon. Not that my team is really set up for Water Spam. Does Lumineon get Quiver Dance? Well, we'll see. Anyway, is there any reason to depart from my game plan that I already talked about at length? I don't see an obvious reason to do that. So, okay, Zoroark, Orthworm. Who goes in the last slot? Zoroark, Orthworm. I'm gonna switch this up. I'm gonna bluff Urshifu and see what they do about it. Okay. Okay, nice Paradox Pokemon nicknames. I like them. The way they just led with that Lumineon. No Intimidate on the Arcanine. I'm gonna Icy Wind. I almost want to Protect. No. Because if they set something up, it's probably best to get ahead of that. I'm gonna Icy Wind. I might have to Terra Orthworm to get the Shed Tail off, which means I can't Terra Urshifu, but I think I'm fine with that. Icy Wind, Shed Tail. Okay. Does go for Tailwind. They just Flare Blitz right into Zoroark. Get the Real Urshifu in here. How fast is Suing an Arcanine? It's kind of fast. I'm going to do another Icy Wind, and I was about to say Detect, but obviously I don't have that because Choice Band. So I'll just... Do I want to do that, or do I want to, like, better Malice Wicked Blow? Get rid of the Arcanine. I think I like that more. Okay, excuse me, Zoroark's move is irrelevant. Get rid of Arcanine. We'll go Noivern here and try to get our own Tailwind. I don't know if this game plan was as good as I hoped. Silk Scarf to boost, what's it called? Boom Burst. I almost want to switch. Well, if they were on their last turn of Tailwind, I would try to make a play here, but I'm just gonna go. Oh, they didn't go for another Icy Wind anyway. Boom Burst does a lot of damage. We get our Tailwind off. Is very good. Do we just win from here? I think and hope so. We know that the Lumineon has a Focus Sash, so the Mismagius can't. They have not used their Terra, which is something. I'm going to Draco Meteor Lumineon and Wicked Blow Mismagius and hope this just ends the game. Okay. The Mismagius goes before. That's unfortunate. Life Orb. Because they still had their Tailwind up. Okay, I misplayed that pretty badly. And Orthworm is now weak to that. But hey, I'm the only one with Tailwind now. Heavy Slam the Mismagius. The Tailwind Lumineon is a problem here. They had Arcanine and 3 special attackers, and they don't have another physical attacker in what they brought. I mean, unless they're running a really weird Zapdos set. Is it worth trying to do Venomoth stuff next game? Well, okay, we lose game 1. Come on. I forgot to fix my trainer, so hey, maybe that's the problem. Maybe we can't win when we're representing the wrong trainer. It's not going to show up in the other games anyway. Too late. Okay. They didn't say GG, did they? Okay. I always prefer to just say it at the end of the set instead of after individual games, but if my opponent says it after game 1, I don't want to be rude. So that didn't work at all. I mean, it was actually pretty close, but... Okay, I think I think the speed control game I tried to play in game 1 was pretty silly, and I should just do my usual thing and lead Noivern this time. Noivern with... Venomoth has real potential, right? I just need something to beat the Arcanine. Noivern, Orthworm. Blissey's also pretty good here if I deal with the Arcanine. But I'm not putting all my eggs in Blissey's pouch. I'm gonna do Urshifu and Venomoth in the back. Okay. Heavy duty boots. I wonder what kind of wild set they thought I was bringing. We also now know that it's AV Arcanine. So, okay, Dragon Orthworm. Shedtail. Probably just that again. I don't think they would have Tailwind on Lumineon and Zapdos. But even so, I think I want my Tailwind here. And Draco Meteor into Arcanine. What if I body press the Arcanine right now? What if I just Tailwind, Terra Dragon, body press? Am I throwing? I don't know what speed investment they have. I mean, it's offensive Arcanine, right? It's probably invested in speed. So another option is just to... I'm just going to Tailwind and Shedtail and play the Urshifu. And sorry, I ran into the same problem as last week, so I stopped the recording and started it again. Hopefully there won't be audio issues this time. We got our Tailwind up, and they just obliterated my Noivern immediately. So I think what I'm going to do is give the Shedtail to Venomoth, and then bring Urshifu in. They also get their Tailwind. It's 163. So Urshifu is faster than Arcanine. Do I Wicked Blow, or do I Close Combat? Close Combat will do nothing if Mismagius switches in. It's resisted to Toxtricity switches in, but I can still switch Urshifu out for Orthworm and get it back in. I'm going to lock into Close Combat. Try to just get rid of the Arcanine so I can win with Venomoth. They do let me have Arcanine. Zapdos goes next and gets off a Hurricane. We get our Quiver Dance. Might just lose a Zapdos here, folks. Let's see. I mean, at least they're using an inaccurate attack. I'm going to switch Urshifu out now because it's not really doing much into these guys with Close Combat. Do I... Mismagius is faster than Urshifu, we know. I'm going to protect Venomoth. Probably just sacking Orthworm here. Oh, they go for the Will-O-Wisp. That's interesting. That means Heavy Slam is obviously not going to do a whole lot. I'm just going to try to Shedtail. I doubt they let me do it, but worth a try, right? And I will Bug Buzz the Mismagius. Good damage. They don't let me get the Shedtail. I mean, I said it. That just KOs. Okay. Well, not gonna lie, I thought at +1 I might take a Hurricane. I don't know that calc. This is really bad though, not having... I don't think I can win this. They played the speed control game better than I expected, if I'm being honest. This is why I don't like choice items. If I had Detect on Urshifu, I'd probably still lose, but... it's a different game. This might be the last time I bring a choice item this season. We'll see. We'll see. Do I have to lock into Sucker Punch? I think I have to lock into Sucker Punch. I don't think I have a realistic alternative to locking into Sucker Punch. Does Burn? Yeah, it does. That's what I thought. So Heavy Slam is stronger, if you will. Okay. Yeah, and that's it. GG's to my opponent. Back-to-back L's. LL to our Masquerainmen here. Definitely going to need a better game plan for whoever the opponent is next week. This one just did not work out. Well, there it is. Another week down. 5 to go, plus hopefully playoffs. See you next time.